The year is 2025, and Persona 6 has not even been announced yet. How? I'm not going to stay on this for long, but oh my gosh, what is happening? It's been a good few years since the original Persona 5 released. We are no joke reaching a full decade, and we still have no new information regarding it. So why not do something fun while we're still waiting? The whole discussion in regards of what Persona 6 would be like has been on my mind lately. The series has experimented with so many new ideas, tones, and styles that it's really hard to properly imagine what we could actually be getting. I've already made my predictions for Persona 6 in the past, most all of which I still stand by. Adult cast, focus on the psychology of nostalgia, its UI. With that said, it's been a good while since I've covered the topic, and now with it being back in the spotlight more than ever, it's left me wondering, what are people wishing for the most in Persona 6? So I asked all of you guys across our different platforms like our Discord server to see some of your suggestions for the next Persona game. Not only will I be ranking these general topics people would like to see, but also I'm going to highlight a couple of neat ideas that some of you have suggested. We'll be ranking them by how likely it is they could make it into the final game. Be sure to grab a bucket of paint and a canvas, cause these are your Persona 6 ideas. As always, before we start, I just want to say that if you're enjoying our productions, or you want to see more Persona-related stuff from us, be sure to press that subscribe button. While you're at it, be sure to check out our other platforms to help further grow the channel. With that said, let's begin. Let's start with a question that we're just dying to know. What is the main color of Persona 6 going to be? It's been quite a massive talking point. Some say it's green, some say black and white, sometimes just looking at a color wheel and choosing whatever looks nicest. Whatever the case is, there's only one color that best suits this new entry, and as you can guess, it's green. I could sit here and discuss why that is from a thematic standpoint, but instead think of this from a more marketing one. Of course, the color in Persona games is meant to be a representation of the game's overall messages and tone. However, you can't deny a lot of its branding is heavily carried by the fact that they all represent said color. This is especially a trend seen with Persona 3 Reload. That game goes all out with different shades of blue in its opening and promotional artwork. I'm more than positive that Atlus knows this, and, well, you know, after doing all the primary colors, it only makes sense to go with green. I mean, hey, we still have that promotional artwork from the 25th anniversary. Some like to argue that this bucket of paint doesn't mean anything, but to me it's more than enough evidence to suggest that this is the kind of color this new entry will go with. Whatever themes it chooses to do that relate to it is completely up in the air. It's hard to really predict any concrete themes when we don't even know the story for this game, so I'll just leave it at that. This is a very interesting one, and it's even been mentioned way back in our Persona 6 productions. The idea of a Persona game having a much older and more mature cast is definitely an interesting concept. You have to keep in mind that Persona games have actually tackled stories with older characters having a significant role in the story. And I'm not talking social links here. I mean literal adult Persona users. Zenkichi and Maruki are by far the best examples of this done well. Can you blame people for wanting to see a full cast of them explored? These two are, in my opinion, the best written characters in the whole franchise. Both cover issues that only adults can gravitate towards. But this doesn't just apply to these two either. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment actually gives this idea a try, and it surprisingly does a very good job with it. We get to see these characters from completely different backgrounds, occupations, and motivations work together, and it's really charming to see. There's genuinely a lot of reasons a Persona game could in fact work with an adult cast. Now, will they actually do this? It's really hard to say. There's been several arguments going for and against this direction for its narrative. On one hand, it does open up a lot more opportunities in terms of themes and messages, but on the other, Persona has never really tackled what Eternal Punishment has done since. We've gotten glimpses of it with Maruki, Zenkichi, and even Toshiro from Tactica, but not as far as a full-blown adult cast. There's this whole theory going around that Metaphor is a response to people wanting a Persona game that isn't focused on the high school setting. Personally, I don't really see it. Metaphor may be similar in terms of structure to Persona, but it's a whole different beast of a game. I'd also say it's a little unfair to keep making those sort of comparisons when most Persona fans I've spoken to don't even care that much for Metaphor. So where do I stand with this? Well, considering Persona 6 is going to have a completely different team working on it, I wouldn't say the idea is completely out of the question. However, that's all the more reason they should probably look into the concept in a much later entry. Maybe after their second or third attempt at a new game after gaining some experience and trust from their audience. Now, this is an interesting one. Having the option to choose a female lead in JRPGs is nothing new. Fire Emblem is one of the best examples that comes to mind. Heck, even Persona has tackled the idea with Persona 3 Portable. In a way, it makes complete sense why people would want this. But would Atlus go through with it? A Persona 5 remake of all things is more likely to happen. Listen, I don't like to ruin the fun, but I just really don't see this happening. Well, yeah, the option would be nice. It'll require a lot more development to properly be implemented. From the writing, to the cutscenes, to which social links are accessible to what protagonist. I can only assume a big reason they even attempted this back in Portable was because the overall presentation of the game was a lot simpler compared to FES. Though, with this new team, it's admittedly really up in the air as to what could happen. I can definitely see them having a female lead in the same sense as Tsubasa Oribe, where she felt like more of a protagonist than the actual main character despite not being playable. But in all honesty, I'm going to have to put this one in the unlikely category. Wait, people want this? Well, in a way, yes, actually. The idea of an open world has always been relatively weird to me. On paper, this could be a pretty neat idea. Being able to explore a giant area full of different demons sounds awesome. However, once you start really thinking of the execution, that's when things kind of fall apart. Persona has always been a very linear and story-heavy experience. Yeah, you can always do things like going back to previous dungeons or palaces like in Persona 4 and 5, but with the calendar and social link systems, there's always been a clear end that you work towards. Of course, times have changed and Atlus has certainly been a bit more ambitious as of late. Just take a look at Metaphor. It utilizes a lot of the same systems Persona has, while also making it much more open in terms of different locations and things you can do. If Persona were to ever go open world, this is truly the way to go. But while they could do this, I still don't think they should. Metaphor is essentially what Persona could have been if it chose to do a more open-ended style. Shin Megami Tensei, well, it's Shin Megami Tensei. With Atlus wanting these three franchises to be their best sellers, I feel like Persona will do best staying in the direction that it's currently in. You can definitely evolve the gameplay loop in Persona without making it open world. I've already made several concepts and potential ideas for this series. This would not only help Persona have its own style compared to SMT and Metaphor, but it would separate it from a lot of other JRPGs out in the market right now. It's quite the trend to see every big JRPG go for a grand-scaled story with this huge world to explore. So it's honestly more refreshing to just see Persona stick to what's been working best, and stick to a linear structure, but with the ability to do several activities throughout the main story. For that reason, I'm gonna put this in unlikely. I just realized I put 4 ideas in the same segment. Alright, let's do another lightning round. I asked around our different platforms what sorts of ideas you would like to see in the next Persona entry. I'll be ranking these for how likely they could be. Let's begin. Someone saying Riz at some point. You know what? I hate to say this, but it would be pretty funny, and I could definitely see that happening. We're placing that straight and guaranteed tier. Branching paths and choices for social links. This would actually be a pretty smart way to evolve social links. You could have, say, one of your party members asking for advice from you, and whatever you respond with will have said character doing whatever you tell them. That would leave a different scenario and potential ending with more, less, or outright different benefits for battles. This doesn't need to be implemented for every social link, but it would be great to see this done for your team members at the very least. The chances of this or just any new improvements to how social links work are just bound to happen. Give players the ability to use the battlefield to their advantage. Using P5S and Kamoshida's Palace as examples, the player could have the ability to send one of their party members to knock down a palace object, such as a chandelier or a torch, in order to damage and inflict status ailments onto enemies. Yes, yes, yes! I absolutely love the combat in Strikers, with how you're able to use the terrain and different parts of the field to your advantage. P5 also had something similar going on, with being able to send your party members to do certain actions against the main enemy. This was always reserved for the palace rulers, but I'd love to see this done for mini-bosses or other major enemies throughout the story. Now, how can you expand on this idea for a turn-based RPG? Well, it's quite simple. Why not have a party member who can specialize in this kind of combat? Think about it. Imagine you have a party member who can detect different terrain and possible weapons around the battlefield, and if you wanted to, they could use what they found to possibly give your team an edge on the battles. This sounds incredibly broken, and it absolutely is. But to balance this out, we can make it so that there's a 50-50 chance of this actually going in your favor and the other on your enemy's favor. This could add a lot of depth through the combat while also adding a system where there's a lot of risk and reward out of it. You could even make it so that you can improve the chances of these executions in your favor through this character's social link. I know this is just a lot of rambling on what they could do, but if we're just talking overall changes to how combat works in Persona 6, chances are basically guaranteed. And lastly, a release date. Not happening. Okay, jokes aside, this does leave us with an interesting question. When could we realistically see this game even released? At the time of writing this, we haven't gotten any real announcement other than Raido Remastered. My theory is we'll see at least some sort of teaser or even a trailer for Persona 6, hopefully around in this summer with a possible release date for the holiday season. This is not going to age well. But whatever happens in the end, like I've said many times, I'll be sure to comment about it on a future production. But in the end, that's about it. Those are most of the more popular suggestions fans have been making for P6. It's almost been a full decade since the original release of Persona 5, and we still have zero information on what this could look like. It really is time for at least even a teaser of all things. Just something we could look forward to. Whatever the case is, it's good to be back. Now if you excuse me, I'm going to start discussing what the next P5 spin-off should be. We may not have Persona 6 yet, but at least we're going to be getting new and original projects. Damn it!